What's going on, Pika fans? It's your boy, Mango here. Mango Can Tango, that is. Back with another video for y'all. And today, we're going to be covering, as it says on the screen, buffs and debuffs. I'm pretty much just going to be going over pretty much what I think about a lot of the things on the buffs and debuffs in the game. There's a lot of different variability, a lot of them, and a lot of them have decent cards that you can use. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And like I said, I'm going to be uploading constantly like I have been like the past couple days. So make sure not to miss anything. Feel free to like and sub, but let's get into it. So basically, the first one is Attack Plus, which I think is actually very important. You can increase the attack by 20% of your next attack. So for example, if you're able to use one of these cards and you use some kind of very good combo damage dealing, for example, you use Sushi, right, and you have a card like this that's in your at your disposal. You can use it, and it will make your attack go up. And you can use, I think it's 2 turns. You have it for, or it might be just the next attack. Oh, it is the next attack. I'm sorry, it's the next attack. So for example, you use this to get your attack up. Then you use something like Sushi, which does an absurd amount of damage on your critical hit, and now you're doing an additional 20% to that. So I think that Attack Plus is a very good way to use them. But here's just 3 of the more common ones. This is Bubble or Cold Fire. I think that's Turkey Dondurma and Water Pledge, and that is Crab Hammer. I think it's Fried Shrimp, see what it's also called. But yes, these are all very viable options, and they obviously all do different things. One has a grass or bug enemy, one does a fire or fighting, and this obviously triggers when the shields breaks. So they're all different kind of things, but also very similar. So that's pretty much Attack Plus, very good. But Speed Plus, I think, is actually even more important. Cards that really have these, especially as you guys know, you really want to be able to attack first on a lot of things. So for example, if you're running a water type and you have those pesky, annoying electric types that are always faster than you, you put a card on like this, and you will most of the time be faster because you can have something like be 60 speed or something like that. A water type be 60 speed, an extra additional 20%. Now you're at 72 speed. So now you're going to be attacking first no matter what for the next 2 rounds. So these are extremely important because you want to increase that speed. And actually, these all do very fair damage too, so they're really not a bad bet to have in your team. I mean, there's really no going wrong with these kind of cards. I think this is Muska. This is, I'm not really sure what that is, but Quick Guard, Meteor Assault, and Bubble Beam. We'll just go with the regular names right now. But you can use all of these in very good variability, and you should have them on your Pikas. You should try to get cards like this because you want to increase your speed, like I've already said. The faster you are, the easier it is for you to attack and do damage because you want to attack first and kill your opponent before they do. So that's also very good. Now, the next one is Wits Plus. Now, the only way I can really see this happening is that if you have a Pikaster, for example, that you want to have 60 Wits to gain that Wits every time you attack. For example, you get that anger. So, for example, let's say you have a fire or fighting type with like 54 or 55. You're like, you know what? I really want to be able to gain that anger every single time I attack. You apply something like this. Well, actually, I would go with No Retreat as a much more viable option than Bulk Up. I think Bulk Up's kind of a waste of a card, but hey, what do I know? And it's not, that only is just this Pikaster. This one's to your entire team. So No Retreat's a much very viable option, but I really don't see it being used that much unless you're using a bunch of fire and fighting types. I mean, even maybe something else that has higher wits like I don't know, a grass. I think grasses have higher wits, but I don't know why you'd want to be getting a ton of anger with grass types, but that's just me. You do your thing, but that's what I have to say about that. But those are the 3 buffs, I think. The rest of them are pretty much debuffs, but honestly, you can see some of the debuffs as buffs, and I'll explain that in a second. So attack negative is basically well, it decreases the attack just like what Attack Plus does. It decreases your attack by 20%. So, for example, a really good card to have is Gemstick or Thunderbolt because you're going to apply a negative attack to your target. So when you're playing and they're about to attack you, they're going to do 20% less damage. So that's what that one's actually a buff, in my opinion. You're putting a debuff on your opponent, but it's a buff to you, if that makes any sense. This one's a debuff to yourself. Now, this is why Star Zapcan is really not my favorite card. But if you play it first, it is good, and I've seen pure electric types do a lot of damage with this. I think it does 180 base if you're attacking because it does a 15%. Or no, sorry, 165. I'm sorry. But yeah, it does a lot of damage here, and it's a very viable card to use. Except the next attack that you use is going to take a 20% decrease. So if you're using something that has a less of attack, it's good to use. And then again, Mystical Fire, it does the same exact thing as Gemstick. You're applying a negative attack to your opponent, so you're doing less damage there. So those are all 3 very good viable cards that you can use. And let's move on to the negative speed. So obviously you're decreasing the speed by 20%. Again, you're doing the exact same thing that we're doing with the speed plus, but now just in a different way. You want to decrease the speed of your opponent. So for example, if they're faster than you want them to attack slower than you. And most of the time in 1v1 situations, you'll have an electric type back there, and you're losing because they're going to attack before you. Now you use one of the cards, which actually I think Snail is probably the best one in the game. Does 100 damage and 40 shield. You use this as a way to slow your opponent down. So you pick up Snail and you say, listen, I don't want you to be fast, and you can use this. And I actually see very common, a lot of bug types have both of these cards on their in their disposal, because you'll slow them down, then you'll slow them down again, or you can just continually, just for always rounds, just keep slowing them down, because that way if they have a speed boost, they have to keep going through these speed decreases every single time. So these are all three very viable options. This is Succubus or Sticky Web, Snail or Toxic Thread, and then this is Yellow Duck or Venom Drench. Sorry. But all are very good, but I think speed decreases are very good because, again, like you said, you want to attack first. This is actually the only card in the game which decreases your wits. I was checking. I was like, there's got to be more. Nope, this is it. So you're decreasing the wits of your target for 2 rounds, which can be very good, I will say. I didn't even know this is really even a card. I don't see it very often. It's a more of a rare card. It's called Volt Tackle, and you're decreasing the wits. So, for example, if you're playing a fire fighting type that has high wits, you use this card on it. Now it's not going to gain that anger every single time, which is actually very, very useful. So I think that something like this is very good. So that's good. But basically, a couple of other ones are not as prominent. Like, for example, Taunt and like Disgust and Sleep, even Confusion. A lot of them don't have a lot of cards, as you'll see. Taunt, like I said, this is Strawberry. This is the only one that has it. And basically what it does is, if you use this, like for example Strawberry, you're making the people attack your Pikaster, which I don't know if that's necessarily good. I guess if you want to keep one of your frontliners that's playing and you want to attack a backliner first, I guess. But that's pretty much all this does, is when you play Taunt, it does 110 damage. As well, but also all the Pikasters on the other side are going to attack you next turn. So I don't really know how that works. I don't really know, like, I haven't really seen it used that much. I think it's kind of a pointless debuff, but that's just my opinion. And then we're moving on to Flinch. Obviously Flinch is probably one of the better debuffs in my opinion, because especially when you play teams with like Fire Fang and Spike Stick, or even Rose, or even Ion Deluge, you're going to be flinching your target. And they can't attack for 2 whole, not rounds, but it's for 2 turns. So, for example, if your peak is up next and you're playing someone and you use like Rose, for example, or even Spike Stick, those next 2 attacks do no damage. And I've actually used it effectively, and it's great because the people just waste 2 energy, which is amazing. They do absolutely no damage to you. So Flinch is what I have to say is one of the better debuffs. And there's a lot of decent cards, but I definitely say that these 3 are very good. Another one to mention is Imp Bomb. That's a good one. But yeah, those 3 for sure are one of the better ones. And coming up on a Confusion, Crow or Fire Lash is the only one in the game that has it. I genuinely think Crow is the worst card in the game, and every time I see it, I want to throw up. So it doesn't really. I mean, I can see double takes damage for the next coming attack. If it was on something that had high damage, I could understand, but it doesn't. So I don't like it at all, and it's a 0 card, and it just does nothing for me. I think it's just a wasted slot, in my opinion. So I would stay away from Crow and Confusion. I just don't see the utility for it. So that's what I have to say about that. But Calm, again, is also a very good debuff. These are one of the 2 of the more popular ones is Bone Wings or Bolt Strike, and then Tustido or Muddy Water. They're both very good because what you're doing is for 2 full rounds, if you're playing, like I said, something that's doing damage, you have somebody who has Sushi, you use something like this, they can't use Sushi for 2 rounds, which is huge. And you use it again, now they can't use it for 4. So you're just preventing them from doing that critical strike, that critical hit that's going to do a ton of damage to you. And it's amazing. It's actually really, really good. So I definitely enjoy Calm a lot. I have Calm on a couple Pikas that I own. And it's good. It's definitely a useful debuff that can be used effectively. And then basically you got something like Curse, which basically is probably the best debuff in the game. There's a lot of cards with Bug, and also I know that a lot of these are not up to date. I know you're looking at this, the damage is wrong. These are not up to date. I'm sorry. I have an old list and I don't have it updated, but I think Bat does 110 and also Go Shock does 110 as well. But they're both very good because you can apply curse to the enemy when you attack. So it's really good because you can't get rid of curse unless you have a transfer debuff card, like for example, like electric grass or something like that. You want to transfer your debuffs to another Pika, which you can do. But curse is probably the best because it takes damage over time. You're going to be losing HP, like it says, 2 HP for every single action. So for example, let's say you're playing and you're attacking 4 times, but the Pika that you're playing has, I don't know, 4-8 curse on it. It does 2 HP for each curse. So if it has 4 curse, that means it's doing 8 HP every time. You do attack 4 times, it just lost 32 HP just like that. That's exactly how it works, and it's great. And I love curse, but I hate when people use it against me because it pisses me off. That's what I have to say. And then coming up to the last few of them, you have something like sleep, which lightning rod or overdrive is not my favorite, but soak and hydro cannon are both very good. It's going to ignore the shield. Basically what it does is, for example, let's say that you know your peak. I've done this actually. I know that someone's going to load up their Pika with shield, like let's say a grass or a bug. They're going to load it with shield. I use something with sleep like hydro cannon or soak, and I will just attack it with solely those cards, and it does damage to them without having to worry about their shield. So it's kind of just like a solo thing. You're just like, oh, I'm going to do 100 damage to you no matter what, and call it a day. That's kind of what it's useful for. I like it a lot. I think it's really cool. It's not a bad debuff, but like I said, there's other better ones out there. But moving on to palsy, basically palsy is it's a decent debuff. It kind of is weird. It works most of the time, but I think it's a little buggy in a couple ways. But basically, it's the next attack misses or the next incoming attack ignores the shield. So you can basically put palsy on yourself. For example, like shell trap, I've seen used in the meta, where basically you use it, and that way the next time somebody attacks you, they're not going to do any damage. So you're pretty much putting a miss on yourself. You're pretty much putting that flinch onto yourself pretty much, which is kind of interesting. Which is kind of cool. But I don't think the next incoming ignores the shield really works that well, because a lot of these has to do with how much you're doing. Like a lot of them have to do with how much you're gonna have to do it to your Pikaster. So it doesn't really, I don't know. It's not the best. And also it's kind of complicated to explain. But I think honestly, Blast Burn is probably one of the better ones, and also Steamroller is also very good. Shell Trap's good too, but you can use them. But again, they're more higher, tanky, bulkier on the shield kind of thing. So they're most of the time on tanks, most of the time. But lastly, you have Disgust, which again, Disgust is one of those ones where I'm just like, I don't know. Affected people loses target priority for the next round. So I guess if you're playing somebody who has a really strong target card, like let's say Ghoul's Dragon or Dagger, which is very, very common nowadays, you use it on them, and now they cannot use that next turn. That's pretty much what it's used for. I mean, they are for bulkier tanks, obviously, because you have 100 shield on them. I mean, you can put them on any Pikachu you want, but it does have some decent shield, these cards, so they're not bad. Overheat and Signal Beam. But yeah, that's pretty much it. But I definitely would say that my favorite are Curse, Calm, and Flinch. 100% are my favorite. Flinch is very good because, like I said, you flinch your target. Calm is very good because, again, you're not going to let them land critical hits. And Cursed just does damage over time. I mean, who doesn't like damage over time? Same thing as like passive income. Who doesn't like passive income? It's pretty sick. So, yeah, but that's pretty much what I have for today. I think I pretty much covered everything, but I like a lot of this stuff here. Speed Boost is great as well. But thank you guys so much for watching and coming to the video. And like I said, I'm going to be uploading every day. Mostly, anyway. I'm going to try to, anyway. But thank you guys so much for coming and checking me out. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them down in the comments. But you guys have a nice day, and peace out.